Right now, my signature program, Scribble School, is open for enrollment, but not for long. This is the robust program that will take you from knowing nothing or a little bit about hieroglyphs to reading the common text you're going to actually see in museums, online, and on trips to Egypt. And there's a very special bonus available right now for the first 25 people who sign up by Friday, May 15th. They'll get the special bonus Hieroglyph a Day planner. This planner is not available anywhere else. It's not sold separately. This is the only way to get it. So you'll want to check out all the details and grab your spot in Scribble School at scribbleschool.com. Welcome to Voices of Ancient Egypt, the podcast for people who don't just want to learn about ancient Egypt, but want to understand it on a deeper, more meaningful level. I'm Melinda Nelsonhurst, an Egyptologist with a PhD in the field and years of experience teaching at the university level, working in Egypt, and training students around the world to read real ancient Egyptian texts. I've spent decades studying this civilization in a traditional academic setting so you don't have to, and so you can access knowledge that's usually locked behind academic walls. This podcast brings ancient Egyptian history, beliefs, and language to life, and shows you that learning hieroglyphs is possible, no matter your age, background, or schedule. So whether you want to read hieroglyphs in museums, on social media, or on your next trip to Egypt, you'll find the tools, stories, and encouragement to make it real right here. Let's hear the voices of the ancient world together. Hello, and welcome to the Voices of Ancient Egypt podcast. In this episode, we'll be featuring an interview with one of my students. This is part of a series I'm calling What's Working with Learning Hieroglyphs, where I interview students of mine to find out what strategies and tactics they're using to make tons of progress with hieroglyphs. These are real people with busy lives, commitments, and also a whole lot of unexpected challenges in life. And we're going to get down in the trenches with them and hear how they've been able to learn to read everything from common pharaohs' names to literature, letters, medical texts, and even the Book of the Dead. Let's jump in and hear what's really working for these real people. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jen. Jen is a student of mine who's been working with me for a while now, first in my program, Scribble School, and then actually briefly we did some one-on-one work together. And now she's been in Master Scribes for a while. So thank you so much for joining me, Jen.
Happy to be here.
Wonderful. Please introduce yourself. Just tell us a little bit about you and sort of what brought you to wanting to learn hieroglyphs.
Good question. I'm thinking, I've always been interested in Egypt, which I think almost everybody in your program is. And for me, it started on a family trip that we took to Egypt. It was very, it made an impression. And I was young. I finished eighth grade, so I was going into ninth grade. And kept that interest, just sort of something that I was always sort of thinking back on that trip and thinking back on what we saw, thinking back on, maybe not anything specific like hieroglyphs, but just Egypt being pretty cool, right? I remember too, when we were kids, we went to that exhibition in Washington, the Tut exhibition that was in Washington. What year was that? Oh, I put it in one of our chats, but it was anyway, it was around that time too. So all these things kind of came together. And so going to Egypt, seeing the exhibition, putting things together in a context and it sounds cliche, but history coming alive was cool. And then I think when I got to college, I wanted to study Egyptian or hieroglyphs, but it really wasn't possible. So you had to be a graduate student or you had to focus on, let's say, history in general, and then you could do something that specialized in, Egyptology, and then the hieroglyphs came much later. So it wasn't like you could just go in there and say, I would like to learn that as a language. You can't do that. So my life went in a completely different direction. And now, 30 some years later, when I came across your course, I'm like, wait, this is something I can do without sort of an academic program behind it that I'd have to be committed to in, let's say, getting another master's or doing something like that. And I felt like that was the major appeal to me. So.
Absolutely. I love that. I feel like our love of ancient Egypt usually does start with either a museum visit, right? Or in your case, even a trip to Egypt where you get to actually, or a book or a movie, somewhere where you see the objects from ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
It's such a visually appealing culture, I find. I think that's one of the things that draws us in first with that. And it seems to be almost universal in terms of that, in terms of what first sort of strikes our eye about it.
I have the catalog here from the
Oh
time
yeah, the
exhibition.
Tutankhamun
Treasures of
catalog.
Tutankhamun. Yeah, but wait, what
Yeah,
year was that? I'm trying to figure out. Was it 75?
that was in the
What?
late 70s. It traveled around for a while in the second half
So
of the
that was
70s.
before I went to Egypt then. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Because I was actually putting that. So this was before that. And actually and I think my parents, if I recall, they sort of were like when we started traveling as kids, my brother and I, like they started, with Egypt, then we went to Greece, and then we went to Italy, Rome, and we kind of tried to do it in that kind of progression. So
Hmm.
Egypt was, I think, probably the first place we went major trip abroad as a family.
That's neat. You did like a chronological family tour there of
Yeah.
ancient cultures around the Mediterranean. So we've worked together for a while now. I think you joined Scribal School maybe about 3 years ago or so first. That's my foundational program that gets you started with hieroglyphs and reading the most common things that you'll see in museums or on a trip to Egypt. And then,
Mhm.
as I recall, I think after that, I didn't have a follow up program yet at that
Mhm.
time. And you had contacted me because you wanted to keep going and go deeper. And I luckily had an opening at the time, and we were able to work one on one together for some months during that time. And then we transitioned right from there into when I started up my program, Master Scribes, and you've been in the
Mhm.
program since then. So it's been about 2 years. And in that time, you've made so much progress. You're reading so many different things now, whether it's Steely, Book of the Dead, parts of literature, like reading The Shipwrecked Sailor right now. But I'd love for you to sort of reflect back to where you started, kind of like rewind the tape and tell us a bit about sort of where you were, what problems you encountered, and how you've gotten past those now.
Well, I think at the very beginning, I mean, I think Scribal School was a really good introduction in the sense that you very quickly learn that, like, it's not just the glyphs, it's the grammar, it's the everything. So, like, and I think what that also helped with for me was that as we've moved on, the core group that we have now are people that are very serious. We all may be older and, let's say, not in an academic program, but we're all serious and we all understand that we're all going to make mistakes. And like working together as a group in the Slack, I think really makes a big difference for me because we're all doing this alone, but we're not alone because we have Slack. I mean, and of course we have you, but it's more like we can work through those grammar issues or whatever context issues, and nobody's afraid to make a mistake or look stupid or ask a stupid question, all that stuff you had as an undergrad, if you're going to be, or a grad student, if you're going to be graded and you're going to be, that kind of thing. It's all thrown out the window. So it's kind of fun in the sense that you're doing this because you want to do it, because you love it, and you're getting something out of it that is a personal satisfaction, I think.
That's great. Yeah. And I love what you point out there about our Slack group where we have in Master Scribes a private community that we host on Slack, and how it's like you're sort of working on your own, but at the same time you're working in a group. And that brings up for me actually something that I've heard from some people who've thought about learning hieroglyphs and maybe they're thinking about joining, but sometimes they feel like I don't really want to be in a group. Sometimes they feel like that's
Mm.
not
Oh yeah.
maybe they feel like a little uncomfortable about that, or they feel like it would be better to do one-on-one tutoring. Or some people are even on the other end and they're like, I just want a standalone course and do my own thing here in the corner, kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah.
And so I was curious, like, how you felt about that, because I know you have experienced Scribal School, which also has its own community, and you also experienced working one-on-one with me, which is pretty rare because I don't usually have one-on-one spots open, but and you've experienced Master Scribes with the group, and so I was curious what your thoughts were on that in terms of if somebody feels like they maybe think like one-on-one would be better or some other format might be better, what you would say to them about the group format of Master Scribes.
I think for me, the one-on-one was really great because it allowed me to to focus after Scribal School. And you're fantastic going through every single thing, and there's no question or stone left unturned, and you're fantastic that way because I found too, like in Master Scribes, there are students there that are ahead of me, you know what I mean, and doing better than me, but I can use them as a resource and not just you, although you're always there. But like having them as a resource, or what I've also found in Master Scribes, and I think we did some of this in Scribal School too, on the what do you call it, on Facebook or whatever it was, like, like we can do independent projects that like we try to do them and then you help us get through them. And you're not like, oh no, I'm not going to help you because it's not part of the curriculum. Like you're really cool that way. And it's sort of like if something catches our eye, it's like a supplementary thing. And then it also kind of, in some ways, if you're picking something that you think you can do, like let's say we're doing offering formula, and we find a different offering formula that's not part of the lesson. Like you can see things in a different context, and then it reinforces what you're learning because it's not just part of our homework. You know what I mean? And then if we run into something else, you can explain it and be like, oh, by the way, we haven't gotten to that, but this is what it is. And it's like, and then you just file that fact. And then later you're like, oh, I remember that when we were doing it independently, as a team on Slack. So I think that supplement helps a lot too, because I mean, while one-on-one is great, and actually, like it's selfish, it's great, but like there's something about that, I think, because we're not in a classroom, we don't have that. We're not in a classroom. We're not in school in the traditional sense. I think having that group of people who are as serious as you are and as interested as you are is a great way to not only make a connection, but also help you learn. And just be like, and I think too, like half the time we'll put a question in Slack and it'll be like, and if you're, some people are more active than others, but like, it's like, hey, I have this question. And then you realize everybody had the question. We're all wondering what the question is. So it's not, and then you're like, oh, okay, I don't feel as stupid anymore. And then we work through the question and it's like, okay, we figured it out.
I love that. I feel like you made so many great points there about the format of it. One being that, I'm there to answer questions, right? Whether it's about the curriculum itself or something else you're interested in potentially, whether that's, and you can bring that to Slack, or we also have our coaching calls regularly where you all bring me questions about the text we're working on and things. So you still get that individualized attention that way in terms of answering, any questions you have. Because I know like some programs, and I've experienced this myself with some things I've signed up for. Sometimes, there's supposed to be these times when you get your questions answered, and then it turns out that there's like hundreds or thousands of people in there and they don't actually like answer all the questions or something, and they just pick a few from all the questions.
No, you don't. And it's so cool. You don't do that. Like you make sure that each question is answered. And I think, I find that very valuable because as you know, I tend to ask a lot of questions. But like the questions get answered and it's not like, oh, you forgot about this one or you lost over that one or that kind of thing. So, and again, because we're all studying virtually and we don't have that, whatever, office hours to just go and walk over to see you, I think that makes a difference because it also supplements what you're learning and like, it's just helping us learn. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that because then, and the other thing you were pointing out is not only do you get the answers like from me about stuff, but that you also interact with the rest of the group with that. And I actually tend to think of it as kind of like you get the individualized attention, right? Where you get your questions answered. But at the same time, it's almost like getting double the support because you're also getting support from others in the group. And whether that's answering your question or like you were saying, somebody else asking a question, and then you're like, oh yeah, I kind of had that question too. But a lot of times, sometimes we just don't think to ask certain questions. Yeah. And then when somebody else asks it, it's like, oh yeah, I kind of was wondering about that too, but I just didn't think to like write it down and ask that question. And so you get those questions answered too. And like you said, it also has the benefit of realizing everybody else has these questions too, right? It's not just you. And I think sometimes when we study by ourselves, a lot of times, or even, if we're studying with an expert, like one-on-one and we have questions, sometimes we might think that like, oh, something's wrong that we don't know already, or we think maybe this is like a stupid question or something like that. And I think having the group and makes you realize actually, no, this is just like a normal part of the process and everybody's got these questions and you can get that support you need anytime. And like you said, work on side projects. I love that. And that you guys have that like little informal book club going. Also,
well, this time is a little slow, but yeah, like, okay. Cause that's another thing for me that like, I'm sorely lacking in, well, let's say Egyptian history, culture, all that. I didn't get any of that. So like for me, like supplementing it with books like the we put in for the book club or history books that I'm trying to read, like that's important to me because you can't learn a language without it being in a context, and obviously the context matters. So I'm kind of trying to play catch up with that. And so like that's why I kind of started it because I'm like, well, I'm going to do this myself. But again, I was hoping that if we read, let's say, what was it, Voices from the Other World, like somebody else might have a different takeaway than I do because we all have a different life experience. And it's like, and I found actually he's a fabulous author. Like, wow, I bought two more of his books because I'm like, damn, he's good. But like, everybody takes something different out of it. And it's
Mhm.
like, but it's also within the context of, ancient Egyptian history, which hopefully will add to the knowledge of what we're doing and what we're learning in class here. And it's actually, it goes back to like Slack, because I've noticed too, because we tend to have, well, we have like, I don't say like what, 3 or 4 or 5 people that keep returning, which is good. And it's like, but everybody kind of has their own little angle. Somebody's interested in ancient Egyptian medicine, somebody's interested in cats, somebody's interested in literature, somebody's interested in magic. And then you realize that like people will ask those questions because it's interesting to them, and then it supplements your knowledge as well. Even though you're
Right.
not interested in magic or medicine or whatever. But then all of a sudden you're like, you go through one of those questions in class, and then you're like, then you read it in a text, and you're like, oh, weren't we just talking about how the ancient Egyptians believed XYZ? So I mean,
Yeah,
so it supplements that lack that I have, because I'm lacking very much in the background, the history part or the yeah.
that's a great point in terms of like building our larger picture of ancient Egypt, of the culture and the history and stuff, and how I build that in places and it comes out sometimes in our
Yeah,
coaching calls. But then also, like you said, like when other people ask questions about their interests, then that helps build that larger picture for you as well, even if it's something that you wouldn't have necessarily asked about in that particular area. I love that. That's a great point that I hadn't actually thought of before in terms of the sort of broader picture and questions that people have.
yeah. And again, we got one person who's like really into the grammar, and at some points you're like, well, maybe you're like, God, this is kind of a lot, and then you're like, but then like you dial it down and you're like, wait a minute, now I understand why this sentence is like this, and I get why like they're digging deep, so like there's always like a little silver lining to all of it.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So I'd love to hear, looking back compared to before and to now, have you had any experiences, whether it's recently or maybe a little further back, where you've looked at a text, maybe whether it was in an exercise or when you went to a museum or something like that, and you could really see the difference from before to now in terms of when you looked at that text and you were like, whoa, wait, wow, I can like read this, or I can read part of it, or, whatever the situation might have been.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the very beginning, all the glyphs are like, they're just kind of like fun, and they're all sitting there like independently, and they don't, you're like, oh, I recognize that one, and I remember this one, and maybe this one's this sound. But then once you start realizing that you can look for determinatives, you can look for things that would indicate that it's a person, or something that would indicate that it's a certain type of verb form or something, then you can start building the blocks, and it becomes more. I'm not going to say it becomes easy, because it's not, because I still can't sit there and be like reading fluently, but like you can put it together in a way that makes sense as a language, not just as a bunch of glyphs that are fun and cool and great, but they don't mean much together. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is at the beginning. It's more like I mean, it's always a puzzle, but like the puzzle gets easier as you start learning things that are like signposts, like, I mean, because like at the beginning, I think everybody says this. They're like, how do I know when a word stops and one word stops and another word begins? Like at the very beginning, like you're like, nobody knows. It's like, when does this name end? When does this sentence end? How do I know if it's even a sentence? How do I even know that it's a name? And then you start seeing things like, oh, is there a seated man? Is there this? Is that, then you're like, okay, that's going to, or you see, Mad Haru, and you're like, okay, that's going to mean that it's a name of someone who's died or something like that. Like little things you put together, and then you're like, okay, I can now dissect them in blocks that make sense, and that hopefully then you can get. I think I'm getting a better picture now. It's not a perfect picture, but it's a better picture.
And is there a particular text you can remember sort of looking at and maybe surprising yourself
Mm.
with?
I think, okay, maybe I'm trying to think, but I think it's probably like the offering formula, because we've done so much of them, so
Mhm.
many of them, and we've done it so often. And I think that like, I mean, and I think, well, that's an obvious one because it's like rote after a while. Like, I mean, most of it is. So it's something that it becomes familiar. But I think probably that one. But I'll be honest, but I'm really excited about what we're doing now with the Shipwrecked Soldier, because I mean, it's a classic. I think it's a classic of literature,
Mhm.
ancient Egyptian literature, and it's challenging, but it's also like, and I think it's funny. I think we even started doing some of it. Was it in Scribble School, or I mean, some of it, bits of it, maybe? Like we started doing bits of it for a while.
Yeah, and earlier on in Master Scribes, we started doing some shorter bits of it as we were going
Okay,
through the lessons, and now we've got some
yeah.
much longer chunks, right?
And now we're like kind of, I mean, to read the whole thing would be ambitious for whatever the time that we have, but we're putting it together now. And it's like, now I'm seeing that like, wait a minute, we actually have gotten like through a few pages and we're getting into the story and we're reading something that's, relevant in a way that it's like, okay, also relevant in a historical sense, in a literature sense, in a lot of different areas. And I think that's also like, again, because I miss a lot of that. I've missed a lot of that. That's important to me too. Not that the
Mhm.
offering formula isn't important, but there's a limited knowledge of what an offering formula is after you understand what it is and you know how to translate it and transliterate it. But something that was kind of fun was the medical text we were doing, whatever that is.
Papyrus Ebers.
Yeah. So, because it's kind of like, wait, this is what they thought about the human body. And this is like, some of it's kind of crazy and some of it's still relevant. So it's like, hey, that's interesting too. So I think for me, those are what the ones that I kind of grab onto and I'm kind of proud of myself, but I'm like, oh, I got through that page. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a really good point about how there's so many different types of text that can be fun, right? You mentioned the offering formula, but then also things that are really very different from that, like medical texts or literary stories like The Shipwrecked Sailor, and how they're all a bit different and some are more complex and kind of maybe have to go a little deeper for some of the meanings sometimes. But all of it kind of contributes to this larger picture, right? And also the realization of, wow, I can read this,
I can actually do it.
yeah, exactly. So sometimes I hear from people a lot who want to learn hieroglyphs and they might be thinking about joining us in Master Scribes, for example, but everybody lives really busy lives these days. And so I hear a lot that people feel like they just don't have the time for hieroglyphs. And they're concerned that now is just not a good time to sign up because they feel like they don't have the time. And so I was curious, like, how you have used Master Scribes and the curriculum and the support to continue making progress even when life might be busy or something kind of goes not according to plan, or like I know sometimes you travel and then you come back and things like that. Like, how have you used the programs to sort of help keep you making progress through all of that?
I mean, the good thing is you're flexible. So it's not like there's like hard deadlines or, you're not, again, there are no grades, there's no failure, there's no shame, there's no like, oh my God, you didn't show up to the call. It's, I think, and actually the fact that you record everything too is very helpful because it's like, and sorry, there are two things that are helpful. One is that we can pre-submit questions and you do answer them to every detail that is asked. And then you record those sessions, whether you can attend or not, having submitted the questions. So that means that like, let's say I could submit 5 questions that I'm interested in, but I can't make the call, but I can go back and hear the answers to my questions being answered. And I think that helps too, because it's like, if you can't make it that week, well, it's not the end of the world. It's like, listen to the call. And I think too, like, okay, maybe if you find you can't do a whole month or something, you might feel that time's getting away, but you also, I think everybody in that Slack group is at different levels too. You know what I mean? Some people are going ahead and some are taking it slow. Some people are going back and doing stuff that they wanted to revisit. So it's like there's no set, okay, class, we're all on page 14 and we're all on page, lesson 11. It's like, no, everybody can do what they want as they want within the context of the curriculum.
Right. I love that. So it's like it's flexible with however you want to do it, basically, is what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah.
And whatever fits your life or and at what stage you're at. And you can go fast or slow or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
You can take breaks for travel, like I know you do sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in the group does. Everybody, occasionally is away for something.
And I've noticed a couple people have been away recently, but I'm sure they'll be back, and they probably just had health issue or moving issue or life issue or whatever, it's like they'll be back and because I know that the particular people I'm thinking of are very committed. So I know that they'll be back.
Right.
So, and you're welcoming to them and you're like, hey, when you're ready to come back.
Yep. Absolutely. And I love that. And that's something I've found to be so important for my students. And also for me, when I'm doing things like this and learning, is remembering that, it's okay to take breaks and then you can jump back in as soon as you're ready. So as we wind down, I know we're going to have some folks, thinking about joining us for the next round of Master Scribes, but they're still on the fence. They're just not sure if they should do it, if now is the right time, or, is it really going to work for them, or whatever they might be questioning. They're just not sure about whether they should go ahead and sort of take the leap. And I was curious what you would say to somebody who's in that situation, who's thinking about joining us, but they're just not sure yet.
Oh no, I would 100% say, take the opportunity because like you have developed a curriculum that's very flexible, it's very comprehensive, it's serious. To me, that's important too. Like I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time doing something that wasn't serious either. You know what I mean? Because I mean, it's not, you want to see an end result, or I want to see some kind of end result for myself. And everybody's end result is different, but you've developed something where you can get that satisfaction if you have that interest. And I think too that people should not be hesitant because the community that we have is extremely supportive and open and excited to like help and to work together. You know what I mean? So like, and like I said, that's made a huge difference for me. So it's like, I think that like, I just like, I've never felt worried about posting anything or asking anything or, it's like, I think because we all have that intention and we all are, some of us have been out of school for a while, some of us haven't, but like everybody's got a different level of like where they are and we meet each other at that place that they are without any judgment. And I think that that's important in an academic setting because not all academic settings are like that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jen. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to
No,
me
my
today
pleasure.
and share your experience. And I know you're going to be continuing on with us in Master Scribes too. And
Yep,
so
100%.
I look forward to continuing to support you and seeing this next crop
Thank
of
you.
people who come in and get to know you and others in the group. And thanks so much.
Thank you.